yeah, we can't find them either.
Yeah, you don't see many right now. I don't know where they went. Ducks either. I got a pond, doesn't have a duck on it. I don't know where they, you don't even see them flying.
Mm-mm. That's what I mean, you don't see them at all.
Good morning, and welcome to the Todd County Board of Commissioners regular board meeting. Today is Tuesday, September 7th. The time is 9 a.m. All commissioners are present, along with the coordinator and the auditor treasurer. We'll stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd ask for, are there any amendments to the agenda?
I have nothing, Madam Chair.
Is there a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So move.
Motion by Newman, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kneisel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and carries. Potential consent items, Denise?
The items today we have are a meeting minute approval for August 17th, 2021, resignation of summer help Jaden Evanson, 8/19/2021, resignation of summer help Travis Mahler, 8/12/2021, clerical intern completion Megan Benning, 8/12/2021, approval to hire heavy equipment operator Dylan Peterson, appoint team leader social worker Michaela Johnson, hire full-time correctional officer Bo Herzick.
Okay, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion by Erickson, second by Kircher. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and carries.
First item I have today is the auditor warrants. Background was sent for review. Recommendation is to approve the August 2021 auditor warrants with an ACH and a regular manual payment totaling in the amount of $4,115,804.85.
Is there a motion for the auditor warrants?
So moved.
Motion by Kneisel, is there a second?
Second.
Second Newman. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, a roll call?
Commissioner Kneisel?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Erickson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kircher?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Next item we have is the commissioner warrants. Background was sent for review. And the recommendation is to approve the commissioner's warrant with an ACH and a regular manual payment totaling the amount of $110,151.33.
Is there a motion for the commissioner warrants?
So moved.
Motion by Erickson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second Kneisel. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, roll call?
Commissioner Erickson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kneisel?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Kircher?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
The next item is the Health and Human Service Commissioner warrants. Background was sent for review. Recommendation is to approve the Health and Human Service Commissioner warrants with an ACH and a regular manual payment totaling in the amount of $115,493.03.
Okay, is there a motion for the Health and Human Service Commission warrants?
So moved.
Motion by Newman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second Kircher. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, roll call?
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Kircher?
Yes.
Commissioner Kneisel?
Yes.
Commissioner Erickson?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
The next item is the Health and Human Service SSIS warrants. Background is sent for review. Recommendation to approve the Health and Human Service SSIS warrants with an ACH and a regular manual payment totaling in the amount of $51,047.80.
Okay, is there a motion for the Health and Human Services SSIS warrants?
So moved.
Motion by Kircher. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kneisel. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, roll call.
Commissioner Kircher?
Yes.
Commissioner Kenizer?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Erickson?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
The next item is the county ditch maintenance assessment for taxes payable 2022. Background is Auditor Treasurer's Office along with County Ditch Inspector have been proactively working on improving the cash flow balances within Fund 40 county ditches on an annual basis and presented assessment recommendations at the County Board work session on August 17th, 2021. Attached are the maintenance fee assessments recommended for collection during the 2022 tax payable year. Our options are to approve the list of ditch maintenance assessments for taxes payable 2022, 2, do not approve the list, or 3, propose alternative assessment amounts for the taxes payable 2022. It is the recommendation that the Todd County Ditch Authority approve the attached resolution for the county ditch maintenance assessments for taxes payable 2022. Financial implications, $19,510.09, and it is a budgeted item. The sourcing fund is, these are special assessments that are placed on the property owner's tax statements.
Okay. Is there a motion for the county ditch maintenance assessment for taxes payable in 2022?
So moved.
Motion by Kenizel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Erickson. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
The next item is the county fee schedule hearing date. Background is Todd County is in the process of building a complete county fee schedule to be implemented for 2022 and is required by law to hold a public hearing to gather any public input on the proposed fees before adoption. The recommendation to set the county fee schedule public hearing for October 5th, 2021 to begin at 9:15 a.m. in the County Commissioners Boardroom and instruct all appropriate legal notices be generated and published accordingly.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the county fee schedule hearing date of October 5th at 9:15?
What day is that?
Tuesday.
That would be after our board meeting, right?
Meeting.
I have to check my schedule. I might not be here that day. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I have
It's
to look. I think I am, but I just have to check.
I also don't know if I'll be here. So,
okay.
I forgot my phone, otherwise I would answer you, so.
And so,
Well, you could still have the hearing. It's just
Hearing.
for public input if these two commissioners so wish to be present.
Okay.
We just reschedule it for a different time. It's just, we run into complications if we keep pushing it back because we work with HHS. they
and
need
this
to
is
get
our
their
regular
letters.
board meeting day.
It's during the regular board meeting.
I think I'm back, but
Okay.
Do you want to just move on this, or do you want us to table it till next time, or
we don't actually pass it that day, right?
No.
it's just? a
No,
hearing?
I'm fine then.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll ask for a motion,
I'll move it.
okay,
Madam
for
Chair. October 5th.
Okay. Motion by Newman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kenizel. Discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
The next item then would be the 2022 preliminary levy. Background is the Finance Committee worked diligently with all county departments to prepare a preliminary budget and a preliminary levy recommendation to the county board at the August 3rd, 2021 work session. The Finance Committee presented a proposal for the 2022 preliminary budget and the 2022 preliminary levy. Options are 1, to approve the 2022 preliminary levy as recommended by the Finance Committee with a local levy at $17,220,950. That would be a 3.65% increase, or do not approve this. The recommendation is to approve the attached resolution to set the preliminary levy for 2022 at $18,782,657, less program aids of $1,561,707, therefore certifying the preliminary levy, local levy at $17,220,950.
Okay, is there a motion for approval of the preliminary
We have
levy?
discussion first, Madam Chair.
Yes.
On the program aid, is that less than what we have received before?
Yes, it's a little.
How much?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I don't have my budget book with me. I can find out for you, but
I believe it's right around 100,000, Dave.
100,000.
100,000.
I think so, and I'm guessing.
16, something, yeah. 1.6 million, something like that.
is what we got last year.
From last year, right?
Correct.
So we gotta make that up on our levy then, right? Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
kind of.
That's what we're working on, yep.
Just so the legislators are hearing this, we have to. We have to make this up in our local levy because we lose 100,000, so.
Yes, it is down.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there a motion for the preliminary levy at $17,202,950?
So moved.
Motion by Erickson, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kircher. Discussion.
And just so we know that we're gonna be working to lower this, I'm assuming?
We're hoping. Yep,
All
Yep.
right.
yep. Any further discussion? I would just like to thank the finance crew that's been working together. We've been trying to look in every nick and cranny. So,
I just
and
want
at this point, we said it can be lowered, but it cannot be raised.
Exactly, and I just got clarification from my staff downstairs. It's 50,000 less than CPA.
50,000.
50,000.
My bad.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I guess too, just for clarification, Denise, do you happen to know the number of what we started at?
Yeah,
Oh, at the beginning of this whole
Yeah.
process?
6 point something? Is that
Yes,
possible?
6.85, I believe, is where we were at when we started this.
mm-hmm,
So we've come down significantly, yes.
yeah,
3.65.
mm-hmm. Okay. I think I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries. Thank you. Okay.
The next item I have then is the truth and taxation date establishment. Background is Minnesota statute 275.065 requires Todd County to hold a truth and taxation hearing to receive public input regarding the proposed 2022 preliminary levy before its final adoption in December of 2021. Our options currently on the table are Tuesday, November 30th, or option 2, Wednesday, December 1st. And I will look for a recommendation from the board. It would begin at 6 PM in the Todd County Boardroom Commissioners Room here.
Okay, commissioners, what are you thinking for dates? I'm fine with either
Off
one.
the top of my head, I would prefer the Wednesday, but
The Wednesday?
doesn't matter.
Does anybody know when AMC is this year,
The following week,
the following week? Okay.
6th through the 8th,
yes.
The 6th or the 8th, okay.
Is that gonna be an in-person?
yes.
Mhm.
So I would ask a motion for, and a date.
If I hear anything weird, you don't care. I'll make a motion for the Wednesday.
That'd be fine.
Okay, there's been motion by Erickson for Wednesday, December 1st, 6 PM at the Todd County Commissioner Boardroom. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Newman. Is any further discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And carries. Okay, Nancy?
Good morning.
Good
We
morning.
got 4 agenda items this morning. The first one is to acknowledge receipt of County Ditch 33, hold harmless agreement for ditch maintenance. Todd County Board of Commissioners approves the following by motion. Acknowledge receipt of a hold harmless agreement petition from Richard Zunker to clean part of County Ditch 33 on parcel 2000-36800, Reynolds Township, Section 33.
Okay, I have, is there a motion for County Ditch 33 for ditch maintenance?
So moved.
Motion by Erickson, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kircher. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
All right, second item is to acknowledge receipt of a County Ditch 19 hold harmless agreement for ditch maintenance. Todd County Board of Commissioners approves the following by motion. Acknowledge receipt of a hold harmless agreement petition from Prairie Lakes Farm LLC, Armthor Cattle, to clean part of County Ditch 19 on parcel 2600222100, Ward Township, Section 24.
Okay, is there a motion for County Ditch 19 for ditch maintenance?
So moved.
Motion by Kircher, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Newman. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? And carries.
All right, the third agenda item is County Ditch Maintenance, or County Ditch 15 minor maintenance. Recommendation, the Todd County Board of Commissioners approves the following by motion. Acting as ditch authority, approve a minor maintenance project on CD 15 to clean approximately 3,036 feet of ditch that is on parcels 0200-23100 and 0200-23501. Corbin Picker Excavating, Inc. will do the project at a cost not to exceed $6,831. And the financial implications will be the Ditch 15 fund. There's enough money in there to cover this.
Okay, is there a motion for County Ditch 15 minor maintenance?
So moved.
Motion by Kneisel, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kircher. Discussion?
Madam Chair, this is the same one that I brought to the work session the other day. It's just the people have done hold harnesses but south of it and north of it, and now we're just cleaning the middle section.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
All right, my final item, County Ditch 8 brush spraying project. Todd County Board of Commissioners approves the following by motion. Acting as ditch authority, approves a brush spraying project to treat approximately 2.48 miles of brush on County Ditch 8. Central Applicators of Foley will do the project at a cost not to exceed $3,792.16. And financial implication, it'll come out of the County Ditch 8 fund. There is enough funds in there.
Okay, is there a motion for County Ditch 8 brush spraying project?
So moved.
Motion by Newman, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Kircher. Discussion?
Yeah. Nancy, is that gonna be done this fall yet, or?
Yes. Actually have the Central Applicators actually does our road right-of-way spraying also, and they're gonna be doing the brush spraying soon, and it'll just be done at the same time as they're up there to do that.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Nancy. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning. Here for the county and SWCD working agreement. Todd County and Saltwater Conservation District have a working agreement that has been under review. The agreement has been reviewed by the Liaison Committee, the Saltwater Board during the August 12th meeting, the County Board of Commissioners during the August 3rd work session, and then after that by the County Attorney. The attached agreement incorporates all the suggested changes and ready for adoption by the county. So the options would be to adopt the county and SWC agreement as presented, do not adopt it, or 3, suggest additional edits and resubmit for review. So the recommendation at this time is adoption of the county and Saltwater Conservation District agreement as presented.
Is there a motion for the adoption of the Soil Water Conservation District Agreement?
So moved.
Motion by Kircher. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Erickson. Discussion? I want to thank you, Adam. I mean, we went through this and hashed it and rehashed it, and
Yeah.
it took some time, but it's
It needed
something
it.
that's good to be done.
Yeah, and doing it on an annual basis will prevent that in the future. It just had been ignored for many, many years prior to this.
Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning all.
Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
All right, first item up for bid today is our 2020 federal boat equipment grant amendment. This was signed earlier in the year. This was what we buy buoys with, life jackets, props, stuff like that. Anyways, the background is the Sheriff's Office would like the 2020 federal boat equipment terms of the grant agreement to be revised due to the purchased equipment shipping delays. All equipment will not be received within the time frame set forth by the contract terms. The 2020 federal boat equipment grant amendment allows the Sheriff's Office to extend the grant contract agreement expiration date from September 30th, 2021 to January 31st, 2022. This extension will allow all purchased equipment to be received within the set time frame, and the grant be utilized in full with no excess expense from the county. So options are to approve the amendment or to not approve the amendment, and of course, their recommendation is to approve the amendment.
Okay, is there a motion for the federal boat equipment grant amendment, which would be just extending the length of time?
So moved.
Motion by Kneisel, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Kircher, discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? And carries.
And just so you know, it's life jackets we're waiting on, so apparently they've been back ordered and we're waiting on those. They're telling us late December. All right, second item up is the hire full-time road deputy with using some American Rescue Plan Act funds. Background is I'm requesting to hire a full-time road deputy with use of ARPA funds. There's significant court backlogs resulting from inability of courts to safely operate during COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, steps to reduce these backlogs, such as hiring additional court staff to increase speed of case resolution, is an eligible use. Also, as a result of COVID-19 pandemic, the amount of mental health emergency calls that have been handled by the Sheriff's Office is double of what it was last year at this time, from 12 in 2020 to 24 already in 2021. Treasury guidance FAQ 4.8 states ARPA funds can be used to support communities working to reduce the response to increased violence due to the pandemic. Options are to approve to hire a full-time road deputy with the use of ARPA funds, or to do not approve to hire full-time road deputy with the use of the funds. Recommendation is to hire full-time road deputy with the use of the funds.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion for the hiring a full-time road deputy with the use of the ARP funds.
So moved.
Motion by Kircher, excuse me. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Erickson. Discussion? And I think we had some of this discussion beforehand, because we haven't yet been really approved for the ARP funds and for the funding source, so.
Madam Chair, that's correct. We have not received
Yeah.
the ARP funds, but we are in the process of receiving those, and we're hoping that very soon the issues that we've had will be resolved.
Okay, and the other source of funding would be the COVID-19 otherwise, or not?
This
Or-
would be the ARP funds.
This would be strictly the ARP funds, okay? Any,
How long was this funding gonna last, for 1 year? Or?
Well, this would be a stopgap because we were planning on hopefully hiring this person July 1st. So if we can start them now with the courts loosening up, we have nobody to work as a bailiff right now.
We've
All of our,
already budgeted for 2022.
correct.
we budgeted starting in
This
June,
is just,
Yeah, July 1st. So we're just
Yeah.
trying to stopgap between that and
yeah.
that time, so. Because like I said, the courts will be opening back up and we have nobody else. All the part-timers that work bailiffs are now our full-timers, and so we're kind of scrambling.
I think just to reconfirm that if we had qualified candidates within the
Correct.
group, this is basically just
Yeah.
a speed up that's gonna be covered by funds until it would've went in June instead. Means we had the candidates there.
otherwise the training takes so long that
Yep, backgrounds,
Yeah,
psychologicals,
22.
physicals, yep.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries.
Thank you,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Good morning. Yep.
Good morning.
Just got one item on the agenda today, and that is to replace one of our hook trucks and our pup trailers. Little background is every year we allocate funds to the capital replacement to keep our equipment in safe operating conditions. This year on the 5-year replacement plan, we have a hook truck and a trailer that need to be replaced. Options are to purchase the 2023 Freightliner truck and pup trailer or to not purchase it. Recommendation is that the Board of Commissioners approved the purchase of a 2023 Freightliner truck and pup trailer from Northland Truck Sales and Trade in 2004 Sterling. And it is budgeted.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the purchase of the 2023 Freightliner truck and pup trailer?
So moved.
Motion by Kneisel, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kircher. Discussion?
Yes, how many miles are on the old one?
I was gonna look to get the exact one, but it's 600 and some thousand.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
Is there a floor left in it, or?
Actually, yes. A lot of miles.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carries. Thank you,
Thank you.
Jeremy.
Morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners.
Good morning, Jeremy.
All right, we have one board action form here to present to you. Some background. Due to COVID-19 pandemic disrupting the ability to host an annual child protection supper in 2020 and 2021, Todd County Health and Human Services received monetary donations totaling $2,750 from several area Lions clubs and private donors to be used within a child services unit. And then we have that list of donors below. We're bringing to you today to formally accept those donations. So options to formally accept the donations and allow Health and Human Services to expend the donations on the items necessary to improve the experience of families and children in our child protection system, or to not accept the donations. Our recommendation is that the Todd County Board of Commissioners formally accepts the donations to allow Health and Human Services to expand the donations on items necessary to improve the experience of the families and children in our child protection system. The attached document does list out those donors. And I want to thank those donors for just thank them for their donation and sending them our way. So,
Okay. Is there a motion for to accept the child service donations?
So moved.
Motion by Kneisel. Is there a second? Second by Kircher. Discussion?
Yeah, I was wondering why we'd have do not accept the.
I know, right?
It's kind of
Those
a
donations did start
no-brainer,
coming
isn't it? I
in.
mean, it's just like-
Some of those donations did start coming in April, so we truly wanted to take the opportunity to thank them for,
Very nice of them.
yes.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we will welcome John, Ron. I think we're at that point.
Hello, Madam Chair and Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners.
Madam Chair, we did have a document that was sent out to Representative Poston and Representative Kresha with our legislative priorities, and the department heads who assisted in putting the information together are present to talk through some of this dialogue. And at any time, if you'd like, we could have them come up and sit with the representatives and go through those priorities.
Yeah, and we wanted to have this more of a informal type conversation per se, if we can.
You don't want to yell at us, everybody else does.
So,
Okay, so with that, our first topic that we had on the priorities list was for public safety, and our Community Corrections Director, Kathy Langer, had put together some information. So if Kathy, if you want to join the legislators.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, legislators.
Good morning.
morning, Kathy.
I will, you want me to sit here? It's okay. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to meet with the commissioners and legislators. Nice to see you again. As I shared in the information that Chris sent to you, the county's funding for probation in the counties has not kept pace. As I know, you've seen, I've been at presentations. Commissioner Becker and I attended one of the legislative hearings where Community Corrections Act counties spoke out about the fact that, for instance, state funding increased to the Department of Corrections every year, but not to the counties. And in fact, the overall increase to the counties over the last 10 years has been a 0.9%. And that it is becoming increasingly difficult for the counties to sustain county probation statewide. So we tried very hard to seek ongoing funding this past legislative session, but did receive a one-time increase, which we greatly appreciate. For Todd Corrections, that amounted to just over $10,000 for a 2-year period in a $2 million budget. So we've got that spent, and earmarked. The concern too is that probation services are stretched thin in counties with lower property tax bases, because the counties can't keep increasing their funding while the state funding stays flat. Just can't do it. And the important thing that county probation does too is work very hard to keep people out of prison. As a matter of fact, that's why the Community Corrections Act was founded, was to keep people out of prison and not fill up the prisons so that the state didn't have to build more, and also so we could keep people close to their families and resources in the community. So I would greatly appreciate your ongoing consideration in increased funding for county probation. One thing that I think is fantastic is that, and I appreciate that Senator Guzelka agreed to Minnesota participating in the Justice Reinvestment Initiative, and that's a nonpartisan work group funded completely by the Center for State Governments, so it's at no cost to the counties or the state.
Thank you. You can just pass them down for you, dear, instead of having to walk
Thank
around
you.
if you want.
Thank you.
Yep.
And so, what I respectfully request is that the legislature really take a look at what this report ends up saying. So, there's been a group of folks meeting, a work group at the legislature, and then a work group of stakeholders statewide consisting of legislators, somebody from the governor's office, county probation, state probation, So they're looking at every single county and what's working and not working in the counties. Both state probation, county, CCA, and they're gonna have their first report back to the back to the state of Minnesota in December 15 with recommendations for the legislature for budgeting and policy recommendations in January. So I just urge you to consider the recommendations that come out of this, because the decisions hopefully, or should be based on data that comes out of this. Thank you.
Agreed. I will tell you from a Public Safety Committee corrections standpoint, we tried very hard to get ongoing funding rather than a one-time funding solution. We will continue to work on that in this upcoming session. There's a lot of things that didn't make sense to me and we pushed back on. For instance, the Department of Corrections has gotten a pretty good size increase as you described. And as they've gotten a pretty good sized increase, their population is actually getting smaller. And they probably don't have the need for the increase that they received or all of it. And they're pushing a lot of stuff off on the counties without, supporting the counties. And so that's kind of the position that we've taken, is we need to fix that, make it ongoing, and make sure that the monies that go to the counties is sufficient. And I think all three of my counties, and I'm sure Morrison County is the same way, need that additional support and need to know that support is going to come year after year.
Yeah, so I'll just add to that. So thank you, by the way. A lot of agreement on this, and one of the biggest challenges we have is, while John's talking about public safety and he sits on that, I'm on the education, and I bring this together because we fight a lot with the fact that the executive branch wants to fund themselves, and frankly, it does us no good. And when we fund like the Department of Education, we fight the same thing. We're giving them money that never gets to the local schools, and it's hard to cut them and hard to cut their budgets when you're not in power. And I suspect if John and I were making the decisions in public safety and education, this funding equation would be reversed. You don't see a lot of disagreement on public safety. The other thing that I've witnessed, and the reason you have such a really hard time with this, is the budget is one thing, but now, as you know, and you just heard from your sheriff, the policy and the way we're treating our law enforcement right now is getting tied to these dollars, and those conversations are eating up our ability to help you because we're fighting really egregious philosophies about law enforcement, and that's wrong. It's hard, and you come down to here. I mean, we know that when the phone call is made, we know who shows up, and they're not showing up because of the budget. They're showing up because that's their job, and so that just makes I'm trying to give you the why behind it. Don't stop fighting. You have agreement on our side. I wouldn't be fighting this, and I don't suspect Representative Poston would either.
No.
Thank you very, very much. And I do know, we've had several meetings where I know our commissioners and Wadena County commissioners have had an opportunity to speak with both of you, and that we have definitely felt your support. Thank you.
One quick, what I would say for Representative Poston and I, so send us some notes. We'll let us communicate your disappointments and your challenges right to the Department of Corrections. The one thing is, when you call them, they'll put you in a queue. When we call, they'll call us back.
Yeah.
And I'm more than happy to use whatever choice language you would like to help.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You pick the adverbs and adjectives. I'll color them in.
Thank you.
Well, if I may, it's a two-county correction agency, and what I just brought up earlier was our CPA's been cut, and I'm assuming Wadena's was cut. So it's a two-sided sword. We're gonna have to raise taxes on both
Right.
ends,
Yep.
again, to make up for the budget cuts that they're suffering, and it's happening in each department. As the slices are made, then we gotta make it up, and you know that, on the local levy.
Yep.
And that's the local taxpayer that has to make it up. And I want you to know, I'll be damned if we're gonna give up this money to pay for the fire damage that the bozos
Right.
did down in the metro
Right.
area, and I'm sure you
Right.
guys are fighting against that too.
Yes.
So, it's just, it's a pain when we're trying to do budgets, because where are we gonna get these dollars from is the struggle, and it's something that we as commissioners, there's two from Wadena and two from, Barb and I are on this committee, we're struggling all the time, and do we lose, sentence to serve program? No, we don't wanna lose that, because it's a good program out there, but if we don't have the money, sooner or later, we're gonna have to decide
Yep.
what's gonna get cut, so.
And I hate to say this, but I think the problem is going to get worse, so we do have to fix this. Commissioner Schnell, is certainly working on, less incarceration.
Yeah.
And pushing more folks out to the counties, for no better way of putting it. And that's gonna become a bigger and bigger issue. And again, counties need to be financially supported adequately, to be able to take care of this.
But again, that's a public safety issue. We're pushing people out of prison.
Right.
What kind of people are we pushing out of prison? It is high tense, in supervision by our probation officers. But it's also a public safety issue. Where are these people living? Where are they going? And, I mean, I don't care for it. I'm sorry. I have to tell you, you know my background. I was a sheriff.
Yep.
This pushing people out of prison is not what we should be doing.
I-
So,
I agree with you completely. We used to have a corrections committee, and I served on that, and we pushed back pretty hard on that. For some reason, the corrections committee went away.
yeah.
Okay, so the legislature isn't quite as involved as maybe it used to be when we met, weekly or a couple of times a week just to talk about correction issues.
Right.
But there's certainly a push with the commissioner and with everybody in corrections, really, to have less people incarcerated, to let people out of prison early, to not put people into prison. And I agree with you. Where are they gonna live? What are they gonna do? How are we gonna manage them once they're out in the county? There's a lot of issues behind this that
Well,
need to be fixed.
I'm not gonna speak for the sheriff either, but this no bail system is a joke also, because, you commit a crime, you go in front of the court and they release you, and these guys are chasing them around all the time, trying to find them, catch and release. It's a joke, because who's got any respect for the system anymore? So,
What's going on in law enforcement right now is just is a shame.
Yep.
It's embarrassing, to be quite honest with you. And we're pushing back hard against it. On the House side of things, of course, we're in the minority, so it's difficult for us to do. But we do make our voices heard. And, I would think that me, you and Ron probably agree on, like 99.9% of those issues.
when I always ask you, if you guys want support from this county board, ask us to send a letter, and we will.
Yep,
I
yep.
mean, I think this board would jump at it.
Thank you.
To send letters of support for you guys and whoever, what we need to do, so,
Thank you.
yep.
One thing I would add to that, thank you, Commissioner Kirschner, and you pointed this, and the board's been great. You guys do communicate with us, so thank you for that. And with the sheriff here, the one thing I would add to this, because it's a big factor, and as I was listening to the meeting, probably the biggest challenge that I see right now is the fact that everyone's talking about COVID, and what we're not talking about is, and I heard it earlier, but we're not talking about the education issues, the mental health, and the economy that's going to choke off here in 18 months. And all of those factors lead to more patrols, more responses. When people ask me, COVID doesn't worry me right now. What worries me is the other side of this, the underbelly that we're not talking about. Because there's a whole segment of the population right now that is living off of dollars that are pixie dust. And that's going to go away. And we know that segment of the population runs into economic, education, jobs, all of that problem that works through this system. So when I hear these budget items, I'm looking to 2023 saying, okay, what's really going to happen? Because if the calls go up and the funds aren't going up, so that's what I think about every day. And, I get all the masking and vaccine emails, but I'm thinking, what about the fact that you're going to have a whole group of kids here? They're going to graduate with no skills. I mean, there's another side to this storm that we need to be talking about.
Absolutely.
I very much appreciate the opportunity, and I know my colleagues are waiting to have the opportunity to sit with you as well. The last thing that I would ask is to, again, please consider any kind of resources that might be available to folks struggling in the community with mental health issues. We, and the sheriff will talk about this, see too many people incarcerated for behaviors that are related to mental illness. Particularly concerning are those folks who are in the criminal justice system, have been found to not be competent to proceed, but aren't committed, and they're in the gap, and they're that's a very sad place for them to be, and it's not a safe place for them or the community. So I know I'm not articulating it as well as my colleagues, but that is definitely a concern.
Yep. Well, I think it's a very big priority for us. We hear about mental health issues in the jails. We hear about mental health issues in the emergency rooms. I've been working a lot with mental health issues in agriculture because it is a big issue, and of course Todd County is a big agriculture county. So I'm working and advocating for more mental health support in agriculture, and been working with Ted Matthews and with Keith Olander at Central Lakes College. And I think we've got some good things that are going to happen in the not too distant future if I can get them passed in our upcoming session. There's also some things in our area that I'm going to advocate for, and this certainly isn't what I'm about to say for sure that this will happen, but you all know that Tri-County Hospital is opening a new hospital in the not too distant future. They broke ground on it a few months ago. It's going to take a while to build it. You guys know about that with new hospitals, with the new one that you have here. But that leaves an old hospital empty. And been really advocating and working with the state and working with Tri-County Hospital on maybe converting that old hospital into a mental health facility. And we could desperately use that in our neck of the woods. That would certainly service Wadena County and Todd County and even people in Morrison County and Cass County, et cetera. So, cross your fingers and say some prayers that we're able to get that done.
Thank you. It's good. Good thought.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, public
Madam
safety.
Chair, we have Sheriff Steve Ock, who also has public safety as a topic for the legislators. So Steve, if you would like to come up and share your concerns.
As you can see, a few of the colleagues came with. Got Chief Ryder, Chief Missy Bertholz, and my Chief Deputy Lonnie Marcy's.
Very good. Thank you, by the way.
Thank you.
John will be speeding going north, I'll be going.
I'm going to echo a lot what was said by
Kathy.
Kathy, there we go. Sorry, Kathy. But our biggest issue, we see it if somebody gets arrested in Long Prairie, or not even arrested, somebody has a mental health issue in Long Prairie, Staples, or Elton County, we bring them to the hospital. There's nowhere to put them. So they get kicked loose within hours sometimes. They're committing a crime. Now they're coming into our jails. Obviously, we have not the capacity to deal with these people, and there's nowhere. And when we do find spots, a lot of times out of state. Prairie St. John's is our big one, and that's in Fargo, North Dakota. So we're currently right now have one that we're transporting from Hibbing to Moorhead as we speak, and these are the closest facilities we can find. Fergus Falls shut down, St. Joe and Brainerd shut down. So we just have nowhere to put these people, so they come into our jails. Our last DOC inspection, the DOC inspector looked straight at me and he said the largest mental health facility in every county right now is the county jail. Yeah. And if you'd come down to our jail, I've told this to our commissioners, it's, for lack of a better term, it's crazy how bad it's gotten. I mean, we got people that are splashing water on the floors and pretending, thinking they're swimming in the cells. I mean, this is no place for these people, and we gotta deal with this. And our staff, I'm losing staff. I had one staff coming up to me and saying, well, I'm quitting. I was hired to be a jailer, not a mental health worker. So we need more facilities, and hopefully Wadena County Hospital would be a perfect place for us regionally. But that's our biggest concern. I mean, Sheriff Mike Carr was gonna be here, but he got tied up doing something, and I've talked to him, Sean Larson, every Minnesota Sheriff's Association. It's the biggest issue is mental health right now. So, is there anything else anybody would like to add in the back and that I haven't already hit on? But it just seems to be increasing every year.
Unfortunately, it's a common problem from county to county, and it is getting worse. It's not getting better.
Right.
I suspect that some of the things that, you know, Ron touched on a little bit ago that are going to be happening in our world, in our economy, with support that people are currently getting is going to affect this as well. And so we have to find some solutions. Tri-County Hospital, the old one, would be great if we could do that, but that won't fix all the problems. You know, adding some people to agriculture, mental health is going to help, but it's not going to solve all the problems. So we're going to have to come up with some other solutions, and we certainly would like to hear any suggestions that you have. I don't know about Morrison County, if anything is happening there, or if it's the same problem.
Yeah, it's the same problem. I mean, so I wish I could give you the silver bullet, obviously. The challenge we have, and I'm thinking through this before I give you a response, but the challenge is we're seeing a consolidation of all services, whether it's healthcare, you know, so nursing homes, for example. We're seeing this, the smaller ones are shutting down, and everyone's going to the larger populations. You guys are the effect of that, dentists and so forth. Now, just thinking out loud, one of the things that I'm going to go back and look on is, you know, we end up with bond referendum and so forth, we end up with these school buildings and school districts that shut down. And they're always looking for, I'm just going to go back and look, because, I mean, what I'm hearing you say is if we could give some strategically placed facilities to take some of the pressure off of our local,
We need beds.
that would help. Yeah, you need beds. You need beds, and you need people that can help them at their level. So let me just take another run at that. I mean, we try to look at it every year, but let me just see if we can find some more creative stuff, because we hear this all the time. I don't know what the answer is right now. It's hard, but I hear you.
Well, on the bed issue, though, there was beds, but I think the issue was the state wouldn't staff them. They weren't staffing them, am I correct?
Well, a lot of facilities got shut down.
Because they didn't have staff, and the state
Right,
wasn't putting
right.
staff in there, so.
And staffing in that sector right now is kind of like staffing everywhere.
Right.
Very, very difficult. But we do need more beds. No, there's no question about that. Another area that I'm working on is geriatric mental health. That's a really big issue, and I don't know, Sheriff, if you've ran into that at all at the jail, or if we've ran into it at the emergency room here, but as far as I know, in about 100-mile radius of where we're sitting right now, there's 9 geriatric mental health beds.
Yeah.
And of course, with dementia and Alzheimer and all these things that are getting worse, not getting better, that's another area that we have to be, you know, focused on. How do we take care of all those folks?
So if we could do one thing in the next 12 months, what would you like to see?
More beds so we could have these people out of our jail facilities, or if we just had a simple call, say Staples PD or Long Prairie PD has a call of a mental health incident, and they bring them to the hospital. A lot of times, like I said, hospital has to kick them loose. There's no facility.
Yeah.
So if we can, what happens when the hospital kicks them out? They come back into the community, and we get called literally 9 times out of 10 within minutes to hours. We're getting called back because they're causing problems at Holiday, or they're back at the hospital causing problems, or wherever. And so we get called back, and now they commit a crime because they've either assaulted somebody. A lot of times they assault our officers, and then we bring them into jail, and they do a Rule 20, they're not competent, they sit in jail even longer because they can't find a facility, and
And when you say more beds, is that building facilities, is that, I know sometimes there's caps on how many beds can be in a facility. Do we have facilities that we could put more beds in? What do you see?
yeah,
Because, I mean, if it's building facilities, it's bonding. If it's adding more beds, we may just have to change some of the caps and to allow more bed facilities
my
or,
understanding, like I said, staffing is a huge
or
problem,
staffing,
too, 'cause
okay.
I talked to somebody who said even if they built a facility today, they wouldn't have the staff to
Right.
staff it.
If
So
I
it's
could
gotta be a dual
really
sword.
quickly add, compliment Sheriff Sock's concerns, Jackie Ock, Todd County Health and Human Services Director. There's a cross-departmental issue with mental health. Placement, like we had said, is one of our greatest issues. We struggle with placement in the hospital ERs. They're not putting holds on their clients, which, like Sheriff Ock had said, is bottlenecking. They don't have the bed. They don't have the capacity to hold these people. They put them on a hold for 72 hours, and then what? They don't have placement, then they hold them, and then they kick them loose, because there's nowhere for them to go. Like Sheriff Ox said, clients are released and ending up in jails, which are not equipped to handle the crisis. Something that we had talked about within our department, we'd like to see bonding dollars offered to support local projects with long-term sustainability. We see bonding dollars come and that ends, but what about the sustainability of the project? I think that is something that could possibly be considered as a solution, possible solution to consider, but staffing is a critical issue as well. Commissioner Kircher is on the West Central Juvenile Treatment Center, and I sit in Kathy Langer from probation. I think we had a special meeting not that long ago about staffing concerns. They just don't have the capacity to get the staff trained and to stay to deal with the individuals, so.
So is this something, I mean, we need someone to back this or get the initiative. Is this something like Region 5 could build an initiative around, build a program? Because if we had that, then we can take it, I mean, we just can't drop a bill in, but if we have an initiative that we can fund and we know where the sustainability comes, we can then get behind that.
We are very fortunate in our region. Mike, maybe I'll let you introduce yourself.
Sure. So I'm Mike Steinbeiser, the Health Services Manager here at Todd County Health and Human Services.
Okay.
I'm also currently the chair of the Region 5 Plus Adult Mental Health Initiative. And, you know, the conversation is very timely. We have a
Greater State of Minds.
Greater State of Minds project going on right now with Sourcewell kind of backed that going, where it's really a regional needs assessment, looking at where the gaps are in our mental health service continuum and what local strategies we can maybe put forth. I think all the things that Jackie and Steve and Kathy have talked about are really paramount, and I think it's not just a one problem solution. I think this is kind of a problem that's steadily developed ever since we reconstructed the state inpatient mental
So
health system.
can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yep.
So I'll tell you, here's what we need. What you've said to me, and I don't take this the wrong way, but what you've done is you've given me at least 3 ways to kill this project. You've said things like needs assessment. What we need is a specific project, because if you come down and say, I needs assessment, they're gonna say, we have enough assessments, we have enough reports. What I need to know is, how do we get you 50 beds in a five county region, and how do we fund that? Because if you tell me we're gonna do a needs assessment, we're gonna do a report, I can tell you this is gonna go out 5 years.
Right. So
That's what I'm trying to help you with.
We're hoping to have that completed
Okay.
by October already.
But I have to believe, and because the reason, I mean, there's an urgency here. We're going to come into a budget. These dollars are going to dry up. If I had a 1-page, if John and I had a 1-page, hey, here's a program we can fund, we need this by this date, then we can start dropping these into special session bills. We can start getting them those. And what we need to do is we need to get them out there. And then here's the secret. We tuck them in when nobody sees it. Well, that's how you get funded.
I don't know if it's a secret.
No, but that's what you do. In the final days, you've got your bill floating out there, and then all of a sudden you get the phone call and say, hey, I found $200,000. Where can you guys put it?
Knowing this year is a policy year and not a budget year, can you still tuck?
We can always find ways.
Absolutely.
I think one of the goals of the Greater State of Mind project is we're able to identify that and have that concise ask. You know, because I think at the end of the day, what we all know is that we have a capacity issue as far as the facilities with the
Yep.
beds, with the staffing, they go together. Part of what hopefully that'll also encourage is it'll change the behavior as well, because
Yep.
we've created a systems issue where, I think all along, wherever you create those bottlenecks and gaps, you start to change people's behavior. So
Yep.
where people maybe won't put people on holds anymore because they know they're not gonna have a bed to send them to, so why
Yeah.
put them on the, you start to influence behavior that way. So if we create the capacity, that'll start to change those behaviors as well, where maybe, some of those examples that Steve was talking about, that person would be put on a hold and sent to a facility and hopefully get the treatment that they need.
Yep. So here's what, I'm sorry, here's how you can help us help you. This is how it works. You guys are the experts. So you've already convinced us, what I need to know is I need 2 paragraphs. Because I'm going to put this in a bill, and then it's going to show up on a spreadsheet on one line. And then it'll hit the House floor, and John and I will get asked, and we'll stand up and we'll say, this is a good project, please support it, and we stop talking. That's as far as we ever want to go. Because once we get into it, then people start to say, well, we have this program, we have this program. I don't want that. I want one line in a spreadsheet so then I can call you the next day and say, okay, this is going to pass. So that's what I'm looking for is I can drop, John and I can drop a 2-page bill, we can stick it in the budget, we start floating around committees, and then that's how we can work it. So less details, as long as I know it solves it, is better for us.
And if I can just say this real quickly, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I agree with what Ron has said. We need an absolute project like that to get behind. And probably right now, there's a big appetite for anything that has to do with mental health.
Yep.
Because it is a
And rural mental health.
huge problem in the state, right, especially in greater Minnesota. So if there was ever a time that's really right for Ron and I to be asking for monies to build a facility, for instance, right now is the time.
Yeah, and what I suspect is going to happen is with all these dollars that have flowed in, the state is flush right now, but nobody knows where the dollars are going. And so what's going to happen is through all the audits, you're going to start to see things dropping off. People are going to be like, oh, you know what, we found $500,000 that didn't get spent. Those are the things we want to be able to gobble up when they fall off the table. It's crazy. I hate saying it, but yeah, the state is flush with all this cash that nobody knows where it's going.
Yep.
So we want to, that's what I'm saying, sooner rather than later, and let us drop something, when we say drop, introduce, so we can start getting those in the mix.
The other plug I guess I would make that I think could really help the situation as a whole, looking at it from a capitalistic standpoint. If mental health treatment was profitable, every local hospital would have an inpatient.
Oh, absolutely. If it was the same as knee surgeries, everywhere.
I think at the end of the day, that will ultimately probably help, single projects and facilities, and that are great. And we've tried very hard in our region to try to slowly carve and cut away at the problem that way. But I think until the funding mechanism where the reimbursements are profitable for agencies to want to get into that and sustain it, it's going to be something that we continually come back to. And, I think ultimately that's what's going to really help as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, most of the people that suffer mental health don't have large assets, and that's, like you see with the nursing home. But I totally get it,
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your work.
One last thing, it's more of a statement than anything. Right now, everybody's looking for hiring people, but
Yep.
law enforcement is actually in absolute crisis in retention and hiring right now. When I went to personnel last week, I looked on Post Board, there was 51 agencies looking for officers. And out of that agencies, you had Minneapolis is down over 200, Minnesota State Patrol, and they put on an academy, it's 40 to 60. It's just that, and I talked to a person that's on Hibbing's board for law enforcement up there at their school. They normally graduate from 60 to 80. Last year they graduated 14. That's not even going to cover a smidgen of the retirements.
Right.
So I know Minnesota Sheriff's Association, in conjunction with the Chiefs Association, are putting out recruitment videos. But I don't know if there's anything you guys can think of I know that my daughter's going to nursing school. They help out with some funding. Certain businesses will say we'll pay for part of your schooling if you get hired here. I don't know if that's something that maybe can go through legislatively, that hey, we'll help you out with your schooling so you don't have any school debt when you come out of school to become a law enforcement officer. I mean, this is,
Certainly a good discussion for us to have.
yeah.
Absolutely.
We're just, there's nobody wanting to.
You know,
get
what,
into
the way law enforcement has been treated over the last year and a half, it's not surprising that people are not, you know, jumping into that profession. You know, when you think about everything that's happened in Minneapolis and St. Paul and all the people that have left the force down there, I thought when that started to happen, that might be a good thing for us out here in greater Minnesota. Honestly, Sheriff, I thought you were gonna get applications from people out of the metro.
And we have.
That with a, because quite honestly, if I was a law enforcement officer in the metro right now, and I had an opportunity to go to Long Prairie, and get the heck out of there, I'd get the heck out of there and come to Long Prairie or to, you know, Todd County.
Correct.
And I thought that was gonna happen, but it's not happening.
It has happened on a small scale, but
Yeah.
their wage scale is so much higher than ours out here.
Yeah.
They look at the, you know, they're making $44 an hour and they're gonna come here to make 26, 27. They're like, yeah,
Yep.
I can't afford that.
Yep.
So,
No, I got you.
So two questions I have. Well, one's a question, one's a, so, one of the things that we tried to do last year, and just to give you an idea of the environment, we introduced an amendment. I had an amendment that I actually wanted to allow law enforcement to go into high schools and just start teaching these kids, you know, take a couple days and introduce themselves. This is what I do. That was shot down. Nobody wants cops in schools anymore in the metro. So, but we're going to come back at that because I think that'd be a good way for you guys to recruit down at that level. The second thing is, tell me about, I've heard that the applicants you're getting just are not great applicants.
no, well, we used to, for instance, we just hired, we had, what do we have, 11 applicants? And typically, we would have 100. And a lot of those 11 are people that either are fresh out of school
Okay.
and or have issues at a different agency that are looking to get out of there, so they're not your most desirable candidates.
Yep.
And when you do get a good one, like we have 2 real good ones right now, that's what we're trying to snap them both up.
Okay.
And all that good stuff, so it's,
Okay.
it's difficult to get quality in. Well, out of those 51 agencies looking right now, there's metro departments that say, we'll slide you in at almost top of the scale. Instead of starting at the bottom, they're starting them way up in the
Yeah.
scale, and how do we compete with that? Or they're giving $5,000 signing bonuses, we can't afford to do that here. And so it's hard,
Okay.
you know, and quite honestly, we're starting to eat each other because
Right.
all of a sudden now Wadena has a deputy that can come here for $2 more an hour or something, and they're jumping ship and
Right.
coming, and or departments within a county or within a whole state.
You know, I think Ron's idea about getting that exposure in high school is really important. We tried to do that with more than just law enforcement. We tried to do it, we've been trying to do it with agriculture, we've been trying to do it with the trades. And for some reason, you know, we haven't been real successful at doing that. We need to get that changed, so young people know that these opportunities are out there, and they're good jobs with good benefits, good careers, and out in greater Minnesota in great communities.
We're very fortunate, we have very good support out in the community.
Yeah.
All the chiefs that are here, when we go somewhere, people are thanking us, and
Yeah.
and they honestly will say, we're sorry what you guys are going through.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you just a quick story. We had this was last session, we had a 12-hour hearing after the George Floyd situation. And
I didn't.
No, you didn't. You didn't. We had a 12-hour hearing where, you know, quite honestly, it was 12 hours of people just bashing the you-know-what out of law enforcement. And at the end of the day, I was just shot. You know, I was just absolutely so frustrated with that meeting and listening to all the crap. Excuse me, but that's how I have to say it. And the next day, I drove from St. Paul up to Wadena, and we had a police appreciation feed in the park up there. And all law enforcement in Wadena County was invited to come to the park, and even surrounding counties were all invited to come. There were people out on the road with thank you signs, and you know, you saw the blue flags, and people were hugging police officers and appreciating police officers. It was like going from, you know, it was completely two different worlds. And so I do see that out here in greater Minnesota, that people understand the need for law enforcement and appreciate all of it.
Absolutely. And we do have the support, but the problem we're having is, even as a parent, one of my oldest daughter wanted to go into law enforcement. I basically told her over my dead body right now, so.
Yeah. I hear you.
Parents are doing that all over.
Yep, I hear you.
So,
Steve, do you have my cell phone? I think you do. If you don't, I'm going to give it to you. Do me a favor. So Sheriff Larson and I talk quite a bit. Same thing with you. I tell Larson, just call. I mean, if you guys have an issue, call, leave it on my voicemail, whatever, and I'll get back to you. But yeah, it's way easier for me if or just text me if an issue comes up. Just send it to me right away. Or the other thing is, and I'm sure John will appreciate, if a bill's coming up that you guys hear about, call, because I may not know about it. Like Sean will call and he'll say, hey, have you heard about this issue? And most of the time I've heard about it, but sometimes I don't. And it's nice to hear directly from you or from Sean, as opposed to, as John said, they'll have 12 hours of testimony, but it's not us.
Well,
it's not the folks from our districts that are testifying.
No,
and that's important to us.
It's
so
12
please use it.
You mind if I give that to my chiefs?
Absolutely. Yep.
It's 12 hours of testimony, and pretty much it's scheduled testimony.
Yep.
And what we would love to do in those circumstances is get you put into the testifying list, because unfortunately all we hear is the negative side of things, and it's all coming out of the metro, and we need to hear the other side of the story.
Well, and the other thing is, that's, if you can't make it out, we can push back. Nothing more fun than for us to start asking them a line of questions, and then they start to realize, okay, that's not what you're seeing out in our areas. And we do that a lot.
Yeah, we draw them a very different picture
Yep.
of our neck of the woods compared to theirs.
Yep. So yeah, hand it out. Absolutely.
But you noticed even in the last couple of days, there was this issue with the Minnesota Highway Patrol that popped up on the news. And before anybody even had a chance to investigate it, which they haven't done yet, they don't have all the facts yet, the chair of public safety in the House was out on the media bashing the Minnesota Highway Patrol.
Yeah.
So that's what we're up against, and it's very metro, left-leaning, metrocentric stuff that's going on in law enforcement. So we try to tell our side of the story as much as we possibly can.
And I'll share with you. I mean, I've got some good friends that I serve with that are in the Democrat side, and they have sons and grandkids that are state patrol. So it's very metrocentric. I mean, I won't share names, but I have colleagues that I work with, and they struggle with this in their own. So it's not. It really is a rural metro. It's not. It's just crazy.
Yep.
Thank you for what you and your folks do.
Yeah, thank you.
To come up here and listen to our stories. And
Absolutely.
You bet.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Anytime.
Yep. Keep in touch.
Madam Chair, we have, the next would be our Public Works Engineer, Lauren Feldbaum, with Transportation and Infrastructure.
I don't have a whole crew, so.
We're all here.
Once again, it's
You
just
don't?
me.
That's all right.
Sorry. And I don't have any major hot topic issues like they do.
Well, it was nice talking to you today.
Yeah, thanks, all right. That'd be nice. So the only ones is we appreciate your continued support through the bonding bill,
Yeah.
the successful programs that are in there for transportation, through the local road improvement program, that we've had a couple of projects throughout the years, our local bridge replacement program, which
Good.
we use consistently for our major bridges, which kind of are a budget buster for our local levy
Yeah.
program. Also, the wetland replacement program for our bigger reconstruction projects to replace those important wetlands. And the only other legislative topic that we have is last year, I think there was some change in the speed limit process that allowed cities to invoke their own speed limits. We would support the current process that has MnDOT keeping a consistent process for counties to have MnDOT do that speed study and then set the speed limits across the county system. So it's safe and consistent throughout the whole state.
Okay.
Well, I certainly agree with that. The only problem, I'll tell you, we kind of face with MnDOT is getting them to do those studies. It's not the, you know, it doesn't make any sense, but when I have called in and asked for a safety study at an intersection or a speed study, those things seem to take forever to get those things done. But you're absolutely right, it should be done that way.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, we've experienced a longer than average time,
Yes.
response time, 6 months to a year. When someone calls and asks for that study,
Yeah,
they kind of want it yesterday. So,
yes, yeah.
yes, safety and speed are important.
And quite honestly, we get, you know, I get the same thing from that agency that I get from most. We're understaffed, we can't get it done, et cetera, and quite honestly, I don't think any of our state agencies are understaffed, with the exception of, you know, if you want to consider the Highway Patrol a state agency, you know, I believe they are.
Sure.
But all the others are in pretty doggone good shape, I think. So it should get done quicker than that, especially when you know, a county board or a county sheriff or a chief or a legislator asks for a safety study. You know, we're asking for a reason. There's been a problem, something's happened, something scary, something needs to get fixed. And it just takes an awfully long time. Yeah.
Do you have any projects on the horizon?
We always have a master priority list for our bridges.
Okay.
We look out 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
So as it takes time to develop those, both the permits, easements, and development of the plans, we always have a project or two on the list at MnDOT. There's a priority or a replacement list that they're basically waiting for money.
Okay.
So I think we have one on there right now, and we're developing 2 or 3 as we speak.
Okay. Yeah, you know, if you have two or three, just let us know, because we can introduce them again. You never know when opportunity strikes,
Yep.
if we can make something happen.
Yep, absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Madam Chair, the next topic that we had as a priority would be broadband. And Denise, I'm going to have you bring up that map if you would, please. So I was hoping that our economic development person would be here today, but he is unable to make it. So just to kind of share some of the concerns that we have with broadband, we are in the bottom 10 of the 87 counties for available broadband. The map that we have on the screen, and maybe Denise, you can zoom it out just a little bit. You can see by this map the unserved and the underserved areas. So to make this a little bit clearer, that light blue area is what is served. So looking at the majority of our county, looks like over 60% of our county is either unserved or underserved. So we are hoping with some of the funding that we have through the American Rescue Plan Act that maybe there's some dollars that could go in that direction. But with Todd County receiving $4.78 million in ARPA funds, that will be barely a drop in the bucket to correct the issues that we have with being unserved and underserved. We know with the children having to do distance learning over the last year, this has been a struggle. It's been a struggle for anybody who's been telecommuting. It's been a struggle for anybody who's had to do virtual medical visits. It's just something that we really need to correct going forward.
So I can speak to there's a lot of broadband money out there right now. So it's actually out of our hands. We've allocated it. So I don't know which company. I know you have Arby. You should be working, and I can help facilitate that. But work with all of your local internet providers because the dollars are available. There's a tremendous amount flowing from the feds, and there's a tremendous amount flowing from the state. The biggest thing is just getting those applications in and getting the money. We have, so the money's there. So I don't know how much you've talked to your local providers and that, and they're aware of it, but really make a case for them to go after this. And one of the things, tell your providers they have to pick the density sparse areas equally with the density, because I get it. I know what they want to do. They want to go into a lot of nodes and they want to make their investment back, but those dollars are specifically designed to go into the very low sparse areas because that's where we need to build out. So however I can help with that, but I mean, your providers should know. I've been in contact with many of them.
Well, I think, Ron, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the state appropriated $70 million.
Yeah, and it's tied to the American Recovery dollars, so.
Yeah, and then the federal monies, I don't know if that's been completely decided upon yet, but it's a
Yep.
very substantial
It's
amount of
huge.
money.
It's
And
big.
I hate to use this term, but this is one that my grandfather always said to me, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So be squeaky.
Okay.
Get out there and talk to those providers, like Ron said, and make sure they're putting the money where it should go.
John, if I can bring up something, you and I worked together with CTC to get broadband up in the Staples area and south of Staples through Todd County. One of the major problems we ran into is a line difference. One of the neighbors in Todd County could not receive it because his area was Arvik. CTC said they would take it over there, but they could not because of these imaginary lines
Right.
or lines. And they were formed several years ago. What's happening with these lines that they're not letting them cross them?
You want me to answer that?
Well, I will just say that you're right. These imaginary lines are there, and I hear about this all the time, but go ahead.
So there's no imaginary, let me
There's
correct, because
solid
here's,
lines.
well, there's no lines, here's the way it works.
Okay.
So if you have a neighborhood here and you have a neighborhood here, CTC can go into RVIGs, everybody can go into each other's areas. So now here's where you run into it. If RVIG is here and CTC is here, and CTC says, I want to build into RVIG's area, CTC can do it with their own dollars. They can do anything they want with their own money. If they get state dollars, they have to apply to go into RVIG's area, and RVIG they have the ability to challenge it, and they can say, hey, listen, I'm already building here and I'm already using state dollars, and that's to prevent duplication. Now, this is where I push back on these companies. If RVIG tells CTC we're building here, then I demand they build there. Don't just say you got to show it, because that's what they've been trying to do a little bit. Is they're playing these games, and then when we get up to our level, we push back and we won't fund them again. So there's no lines until you get to state dollars, and it's called a challenge process. So one company can say, I'm already building here, I already have a plan, and I've already received dollars. And we did that on purpose so we wouldn't duplicate, right? They're starting to play games with it, so that's where the pushback needs to come. And if you hear of that, let us know. I'll elevate it to the Office of Broadband, because we'll actually pull their funding if they can't prove they're going to build in a certain time.
And there is right
Yeah.
now in Moran Township, there's definitely people.
But let me clarify,
Yeah.
and because this is very important, I also push on CTC and say, you can build there on your own. You don't need the state, you don't need the state dollars to do everything. You can start the process. So, because what I see both sides of this, I'll see RVIG say, hey, we're going to protect our turf. And then I'll hear another company say, well, we really can't build in there because, no, you can if you want. What you're really doing is you're being hesitant because, yeah, that's a hard area. There's not a lot of homes. But that's what we've told them to do, is unserved first. Yes. So I'll push back however you want, but that's what they're telling you, and we can push on that.
And Ron is absolutely right. The lines that I speak about are the lines that they give constituents, that they give customers.
Mm-hmm.
I hear that at least once a week. CTC is right out here, but I can't have it because I'm over here.
Yep.
And that is a constant thing, and we have to go to the Department of Broadband, and we have to, push back on those kinds of things. But that imaginary line is something that these companies like to use with customers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only one that can prevent them is right-of-ways, which would be municipalities, and I haven't seen any that usually deny them.
Okay.
One other thing, and I should point out, there's lots of craziness about this. Like right now, I'm fighting the Department of Commerce so all the things I can say about the telecommunications people, and they try to do a very good job. Then the Department of Commerce puts rules in place that says your landline if your landline goes down, you have to respond to that and service it within 24 hours. Okay, now, how many of you have landlines? So we've been trying to, you do? But you have a cell phone as well, right? Yeah, so here's the thing, right?
How I get my internet, I have to have a landline.
Yeah, but
we've been trying to push back in the Department of Commerce to say, you know what, relax your rules on the landline so we can focus on broadband. But the Department of Commerce is convinced that landlines are still very, very important. And my last testimony, I said, listen, my 92-year-old grandmother has been FaceTiming longer than you people have been using landlines. For goodness sakes, let us go into the next century. But that's the kind of crazy things that stop us.
Well, I have RVIG, and we've asked them, and they said, you're maxed out. They've got the copper line stretched as far as they
Sure.
can stretch it. So they said, we can't get you any more speeds. You're at the highest speed you can get.
So they've got to bring in fiber or wireless. And those are coming, but not fast enough.
Not fast enough, yep.
Okay, thank you.
But thank you, keep pushing.
Thank you. The next would be Health and Human Services. If there's anything, Jackie, you haven't maybe touched on previously? So again, Jackie Yack, the Health and Human Services Director.
Just a couple of other things that I wanted to bring to your attention. I first want to introduce my team, which are my content experts. Jenna Peterson, Administrative, Catherine McAdams, Community Health, Lisa Chapin, Financial, and then Mike Steinweiser, you have met. So as things are related to a couple of topics, I'll invite them to come up, maybe Lisa and Catherine, but one being on transportation. Transportation across our county is a little disjointed with Friendly Rider and Rainbow Rider due to the MnDOT standards and allowing boundaries to be crossed. Again, it's these magical lines that we've talked about. Our volunteer driver program is in need of a serious attention due to our aging volunteers. The managed care organizations, or MCOs, are not holding up to their end of the bargain to establish and set up or follow through with the client medical transportation needs and rides. We struggle to find rides for our clients with the MCOs, and we're in great need of volunteer drivers or reimbursement to support staff positions to get our individuals to their medical appointments. So Catherine and Lisa, I don't know if you want to come up, or Jenna, to talk a little bit about it, but.
Why do you think there's such a driver shortage? I mean,
Well,
I've heard
yeah,
this.
you're right.
Heard this several times.
It's a generational. There were volunteers that volunteered or that retired in their 50s and stayed home, right? And decided, I'd like to continue serving my community, right? Those people don't, when people retire now, more the boomers, right? They're helping out with grandchildren, they're traveling, they're moving. We don't see that dedicated volunteer. And it's not just volunteer drivers. We see it at our kitchens. We see it at food shelves as well. You'll hear the same thing with food shelves. They can't get enough volunteers. And it's that generation, that older generation now, that's aging out, that really committed to staying in their communities and volunteering long-term and sustainable volunteer. People do the one-and-done volunteering now, but people won't commit. Also, our volunteer drivers, we reimburse at 56 cents. Thankfully, we did have the change in the tax law last year so that we don't have to tax them anymore if they make more than $600. So that was positive. But it's a grueling job. We see our volunteer drivers bring people to dialysis 3 times a week, right? They're driving people who have mental health issues. They're driving people, our foster kids. These are difficult clients, right, to commit to. And so and since COVID, of course, we are down to about 4 volunteer drivers. We used to have about 15 about 5 years ago. So, and we're not replacing them. It's really not going to happen. And also, again, unless we look at funding them in-house, and one of the bigger issues we have now. So we're really looking at options because of the health plans are not doing a great job. They're sending drivers from Big Lake to pick someone up in Staples and drive them 4 miles, right? Friendly Rider, Rainbow Rider doesn't want to contract with our health plans, which is a bigger issue. But part of that is that if we have to look at providing those rides, we'd have to hire someone at HHS to do that. And right now, the way it's funded, we'd only be able to pay them 22 cents a mile, not 56 cents. And that's a huge issue. So we'd want to make sure that if we were to bring someone on board, we need to get that full reimbursement because they see it as a conflict of interest for someone in our staff to drive. So I don't think volunteer drivers are coming back. Sorry. We are seeing the same issue all across the state. So we're going to have to look at different alternatives, different options to continue providing this transportation. We also have to look at ways that our whole county is covered, right? It's impossible now. I mean, even our health plans, we have to say give vouchers to Friendly Rider or Rainbow Rider, right? But yet in the middle of the county, around Eagle Bend is where, you know, they meet and they don't cross. And part of that's just this disjointed nature. We don't have a great system. And also Friendly Rider and Rainbow Rider need to make money as well. And so they aren't taking a lot of these one and done rides. You know, they want to see more routes. And that's not possible with the way it is now for medical transit. People need to get to an appointment. They can't wait till Thursday when you come at noon, you know. So we're just going to have to be more creative with these solutions around transportation because it's not going to change. And in a rural area, when you don't have family and friends that live close by, you're very dependent on the county system for that.
Is there any opportunity to pair with the school district? I mean, we have a lot of these buses that they run twice a day and they just sit. And I know we have school bus driver shortages, but I mean, if there's something legislatively we need to fix so that could be stopped, but, you know, I'm thinking if you had 1 or 2 buses running throughout the day, why not?
You know, we've explored it. Askment, one of our large transportation that has vans. I think, again, we wouldn't need, of course, a school bus driving one person. You also have to think of people in wheelchairs who have other higher level needs. But there's an opportunity. We already partner with the schools around foster care. So when a child is placed in a foster care in Staples, but let's say they still go to Long Prairie for school, they still provide that transportation. So I think there is an opportunity because I agree. I think we have to be more creative with what we have. Again, it comes down to money. How does that get paid for? And is that something the county is going to have to reimburse them for? You know, then we would need a higher reimbursement rate.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, because I mean, there's, you know,
They're running wrong.
and we could tap into education dollars. I mean, there's transportation sparsity dollars we could use. I don't want to, I just think we need to explore some options.
And I agree. I think the problem is it's a one-on-one ride, right? Which is where a volunteer driver has been the most cost-effective way to do that, but it's just not going to, you know, be sustainable long-term. So we're going to have to just look at more creative ways to do that. It'd be nice if our group homes and our assisted living centers too as well had more opportunities to provide those rides, but again, they're short-staffed, so they can't free up staff to do those rides either. So they've talked about being provided respite care, things like that, so they could do more of these rides themselves. I, again, don't think our staffing issues are going away, so it'd be good to look at.
It seems like a lot of the problems that we're having today is all about staffing. You know, it just comes up over and over and over again.
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm interested in, because we're not going to solve this separately, but we're going to have to start looking at some cross-pollination things. So if we can get, you know, the schools to work collaboratively with you or maybe another agency, maybe we can start sharing resources, because just with the staffing shortage, we just can't solve it at every single instance. It's just, it's no way. Even if we throw dollars at it, we're going to have equipment just sitting there because we don't have people. So
The same with our healthcare systems as well. You know, I think ambulance drivers, community paramedics that are out there, they've always thought of creative ways that what could they be doing in their free time, you know, when they're not on a call. And so looking at that, I think our healthcare systems, you know, there's a lot of specialty care they're pushing people out to, and then we're providing those rides, you know, and that's an issue too, is that, again, we all know these issues with dialysis and eye clinics, you know, but people are going to Fargo, they're going to Brainerd all the time, Minneapolis for that care. And then again, that puts a lot of strain on us to provide those rides.
So just give me an idea of people from Todd County going all the way to Fargo into Minneapolis. Is that a real common? Does it happen all the time?
It's specialty care, so I mean, it's not all the time, but there are people who get referred. Jenna maybe wants to time in for this.
10 a month.
There you go, 10 a month, she would know.
So I really can't answer to the health plans that are providing the ride.
I mean,
And
we don't even have a kidney dialysis in Todd County.
Staples, St. Cloud, Alexandria, not in Long Prairie, so they're always going out. But it's that specialty care that we see. You know, it's a lot of chemotherapy, it's things like that that you just can't get locally. So.
Thank you. One last thing I wanted to bring up real quickly, and this is something that Lisa had brought up when we met late last week, so I'll ask Lisa to come up. And I think it with all the dollars that have gone out in our community for our younger populations, it might be something we want to consider with our elderly and disabled income standards individuals. Income standards are lower for the elderly and disabled. Their income standards are too low and subject to an asset test. This population should not have to find employment in order to pay for health care or cost of living. At the end of the month, the elderly and disabled are typically left with about $870 a month for expenses, with $19 cap of SNAP benefits, while working able bodies supplements are way more generous than ever, as we've all heard many, many times.
And I think that's just, you know, historically, for as long as I've been here, been a problem for the elderly and disabled. They kind of get pushed off to the side, and they're our most vulnerable population. And, you know, even with all the money that's, you know, now we're going to have SNAP benefits are going to increase every year. We're looking at in October, there's going to be an increase, and it's an average of $36 per person. That averages, that's $1 for the elderly. So their benefits are going from $19 to $20 a month for the majority of our elderly population. So it's just really sad to see. And, you know, I asked my staff if you know, I have a chance, what is it that you want, you know, that we could speak of the most? And they all said the elderly. You know, they have, they spend all of their lifelong savings to be eligible for medical assistance. And, you know, a lot of them don't want to do that, and they would rather go without health care with the services that they need before they're going to spend everything down below that $3,000 asset limit.
Okay.
One more thing to add to the list, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that, did you have one more thing, or are you done? So tell me about child protection. That's one of the areas that I work a lot in, and you didn't have it on here, but I've been watching it closely.
And that's Mike's area, so I'll have Mike come up and speak to it. I'm wondering, like, are you talking about staffing or numbers, intake?
Just tell me generally, I mean, you know, when you go home at night, what do you think about? What are the problems that you're facing right now?
Oh, boy.
I know it's a lot, but
Yeah,
and I know the area pretty well, so you're not going to surprise me. But
you know, I think locally, you know, staffing has been an ongoing issue.
Yep.
Our numbers have been down just a little bit. We've been kind of waiting for this post-COVID
Yep.
Resurgence, and with school starting this week, you know, that's a major referral source for child protection as well.
Yep.
You know, all of the issues that we've talked about here today permeate through child protection as well. When we're talking about mental health, we haven't talked a lot about substance use disorders, but that's still a major source of concern in our county. You know, Todd County, we still see a lot of methamphetamine use. You know, the sheriff and that.
Has the meth gone back to heroin?
Heroin, we're fairly lucky in Todd County. It seems to be a Highway 10 corridor issue.
Yep.
Like Little Falls, Morrison has the bulk of that.
Right.
We do see it here,
Okay.
but not nearly the numbers that are seeing over like Morrison County, but
Okay.
it has increased.
Okay.
You know, I would say methamphetamine is still our.
It's a more expensive.
Can afford the other part of it.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you know, we're kind of waging through some of these changes with Families First changes and some of those changes. And, you know, I think one of the things we have that's a real strength here is we do a lot of things regionally in the smaller counties. We try to look at regional ways to address some of the changes with the QIs that are going to be needed for placements. With Family First, we're looking at possibly having a regional pool of people to be able to serve in some of those roles. And locally, within our region, we're working on a SIBS team with Children's Mental Health to try to work on offering more intensive family therapy options prior to placements and then post-placement as well, to try to shorten up some of those placements. And so there's always something going on. But I really, you know, and I want to say this here too, we're very fortunate here. We work very collaboratively with our local law enforcement and our county attorney's office, and we've had great support from our local board. And so as we've needed to add staffing or those kind of things, we've had the support that we've needed.
So issues I'm looking for, so I understand all the staffing and some of the issues you're working with at the executive level. Are you seeing anecdotally, and maybe you have it quantitatively, is it more neglect? Is it more abuse? Is it more domestic violence? I mean, what are you seeing come up from the families?
Neglect is a big one.
Okay.
You know, the substance use disorders is the major thing.
Yeah.
There is some abuse as well, but I would say kind of that neglect.
And is that, and I you probably don't have, I'm trying to understand this, but is this neglect coming from people not having jobs? Or that, you know, what I'm trying to look is I know there's a lots of issues, but I'm trying to see how COVID has changed this equation. You know, we pushed a lot of kids back into schools where frankly those homes weren't safe. And so I'm trying to get a lay of this land because I'm trying to see what I'm going to have to push for in 18 months.
I think we're still waiting to see what the results
Okay.
of that is.
And that's a fair answer,
I think part of that is, we're not sure what's all out there because if stuff doesn't get reported to us,
Right.
who knows what exactly is happening. You know, I think our law enforcement partners have, you know, become their primary referral source for us. You know, there was that time, I think, where we went through where everybody was in their homes when kids
Yep.
weren't at home and, you know, parents weren't at work where, you know, sometimes those living quarters got a little too small for some of our families.
Right.
You know, I'm not seeing as many of those referrals now. I don't know if you guys still are.
Law enforcement, correct me if I'm wrong, what we're seeing in the county, I'm sure with you guys in the cities, is substance abuse.
Okay. And is that higher than normal?
It seems to be increasing yearly.
And would you say it's a coping mechanism? Is it, you know, they're turning to something to get through a really crappy time right now?
Oh, and it's unaddressed mental health issues, but it's
Okay.
all systemic. It all
Yep.
goes back to that same issue that we were talking about.
Okay.
When those aren't getting addressed, they're either turning to substance abuse or they're
Right.
turning to whatever, and
Okay.
it trickles down to the kids. And
Don't you think your numbers would be down because of, the kids aren't exposed to mandated reporters such as
Yeah, that's
teachers?
that referral source,
You
I
know,
think.
and things like that, because now they're in their homes, but once they start drifting out to school and wherever daycares,
Right.
you're gonna see more because of the mandatory reporters are gonna be spotting those
Absolutely will
stuff.
increase once school starts. now.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why we, you know, to be determined, and,
Right.
you know, we also are talking about truancy. Because
Right.
we've seen that, you know, with kids and COVID and coming back to school, are they doing their homework, are they not? And working through the truancy with the schools as well, and we're looking at possibly an initiative through Region 5, and how do we handle truancy throughout the region, because most of those kids who are truant, we also see them in multiple school districts, and even within our own school districts, or in our county, they are not, how we handle truancy is not the same.
Well, so that's one of the things I've been watching. One of the things that worries me the most right now is there's a whole bunch of kids that just disappeared.
Yep.
And we're waiting to see them come back up. And I don't know how they're going to surface back up. So, okay.
And Ron, he doesn't stay awake at night because he doesn't have any gray hairs, so he.
That's, just Ryan takes care of that.
Touch of gray.
I do just, real quick, I want to say thank you for the continued funding for the RMHIs, and I know we got an increase for the next few years as well. I know the initial governor's budget had a cut to the regional mental health initiatives, what I think would have been the worst possible time to look at doing that.
Agreed.
So we really appreciate that funding being supported and coming through, so.
Good.
Along with that, same with the public health dollars. So, I mean, if you could plan COVID to happen, and none of us could or would ever want to go through this again, but it was a bonding year, or not a bonding year, but a budget year, that we were able to get some additional local public health dollars that hadn't been increased in, I think, since 2003. So truly appreciate the extra funding, which did help our levy and planning for our 2022 budget with our commissioners, so.
Yeah, and I'll just add, Mike and Jackie and your team and to the law enforcement, I've read those reports, and frankly, it's just wrong what adults do to some of these kids. It's absolutely horrifying. So thank you for what you do, because that stuff doesn't leave you. And I know that's probably what sticks on your mind when you go home more than anything is these really, really bad. So thank you.
When we tell our kids they don't know how lucky they have it, they truly don't know how lucky they have it.
Oh, absolutely.
So.
My poor kids haven't gotten anything for Christmas the last 5 years. I'm like, no, I'm just kidding.
Grandkids, different story.
That's right.
Thank you.
I
I do have a question that's probably concerning to Health and Human Services. Lately, I've been receiving a lot of emails, text messages, and in person about individuals requesting me to say no to vaccine passports and mandates. And it seems that I'm the only commissioner that's been receiving these emails. And my concern is for me, that is an individual's right. If they want to wear a mask, they don't want to wear a mask, they want to get a shot, they don't want to get a shot.
Mm-hmm.
That is their right. I don't want to see the government overstepping their bounds on this. People's rights need to be protected. But I find it really interesting that I'm receiving these. I'm going to do a little digging more and find out where the source is. But down at the state level, what's going on?
I don't know if you want to start, I can.
Well, I'm getting a lot of those emails too, and text messages and social media messages, et cetera, et cetera. You know, my stance on it is, Randy, is that, you know, it's your body, it's your choice. You know, your kid, your choice. You know, we've been pushing back on these mandates. We've been pushing back on these passports. The federal government seems to be moving full steam ahead on them in some cases, and the state seems to be following. I talked to you before the meeting today and shared some real concerns that I learned about on Friday. You know, right now our armed service folks are required to get vaccinated. On Friday, it was brought to my attention that now armed services families are going to be required to get vaccinated. They're working on the same thing with healthcare families now, and they're working on the same thing with education families now. So this kind of just keeps getting worse and worse and worse, and I don't know how we're going to stop it. I never thought we'd be at this point. And I don't know how we're going to stop it, Ron. I don't know if you have some suggestions there. We continue to push back on it. And I know you're probably pushing back on it as well.
Yeah, so thank you, Commissioner Newman. Here's what I say. So first of all, there's the issue we have right now, which people are really abrasive to, which is the being forced into anything. My position is, if you're healthy or if you think the vaccination is the right thing for you, by all means, go to it. Mm-hmm. We don't know everybody's health conditions. There's lots of people I've talked to that aren't comfortable with that. So, and the mandates, what I've seen over the last 2 years is the government's going to get the mandates wrong. You can't get that. When you look at the schools, we absolutely failed. The way we sent kids home. I mean, if you go back and look at the studies across the world, the best place those kids could have been was the schools, and we did the opposite. Instead, we filled the nursing homes. So the way I see this right now is I think there's a lot of well-intentioned people, but the government will get it wrong because we don't know enough, and it's changing all the time. Now, I'm going to take a different course because I've been watching this in different veins. The legal side of this and the from a human resources and company, this is going to get really ugly because I mean, let's take a company for example. I have a lot of people I'll take healthcare. Lots of nurses have talked to me and said, "Hey, what happens if I'm required to get a vaccination?" And I said, "Well, first of all, you're not required. The ADA, the federal ADA, says you can offer a vaccination program, but you have to offer exemptions for medical and religious." Okay, so then they say, well, I can't get a medical one. I said, okay, fine. Now, here's what we're running into. We're suddenly making a whole bunch of people think about being dishonest because they're going to run to the religious exemption because that's the loophole. Okay, so I did a whole bunch of research because I was looking on this on the other side, right? Flip this around. John's a business owner. I'm a business owner. If somebody comes to me and I decide to require them to vaccinate, but they say to me, I want an exemption, my answer should be fill out the exemption so I can cover my liability, right? I just have to make sure that I do my paperwork. So I'm going to the healthcare and I'm saying, okay, you better be careful because You're coming down to the state telling us you have shortings of staff, and at the same time, you're choking off people that want to work for you. That doesn't make any sense. Because if I file for a religious exemption, this is what's crazy, and I'm sorry about the being on the soapbox, but there are lawyers lining up left and right. Because here's how the law reads. I can't tell John can come to me and say, I'm a Lutheran, I have a religious exemption. I can't deny him for that. Because I can't go through all the religious doctrine of the Lutheranism and decide, hey, nobody's against vaccines and Lutheran, you can't do that. Because the law actually says the only thing I can look at is, does John have deeply, and these words are exact, deeply held religious convictions on against this. So if John comes to me and says, I have deeply held religious convictions, there's no way in court I can fight that. Now, here's the most interesting thing of this, which is interesting because here we are in Todd, Morrison County. Atheism is now a religion because the atheists have pushed back and said, we want the same rules. So now John can actually come to me and say, you can't ask me about my religion, and by the way, I'm an atheist, so now what do I do? And so the law and the courts have said, it's not whether or not your religion or your religious belief is against vaccinations. It's whether or not you believe, and this is the actual precedent, that morally this is right or wrong. So we've now boiled this all the way down to the courts will defend John if he says, I have a deeply held belief that this is wrong. So so to your answer, I'm saying to these institutions, you damn well better go back to your HR department and figure this out, because you're going to get this wrong, and then you're going to get sued. I mean, can you imagine the class action lawsuits if you have a whole group of people who decide they've had deeply held religious or moral beliefs, and you've been put on unrequested leave of absence for a year with no income? This is not, I mean, so that's my big warning flag. I'm like, listen, get away from the politics. Get away from whether you believe this is freedom or not, and look at the fact that we're about to kick a whole bunch of people into a class action lawsuit that nobody but lawyers are going to benefit from. So that's my side of this, and and that's where I think the government's going to get this wrong, because we're going to flip. Suddenly, the winds change down there, and you will suddenly see a minority of the population that's going to come up through the statutes and say, we were unfairly treated because we had these beliefs, and we know where the court's going though. So I do not understand the decisions we're making right now.
Thank you.
Because it's scary. It's really, really scary.
It is.
So I hope that helps. It's a long thing, but yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, and I should add this. John and I haven't, and we've offered legislation. I mean, I just don't see I don't see passports passing. That would be, I mean, how do you enforce that? And then, so that's something we wouldn't support, and haven't. And again, the mandates, wow. That's a...
Yeah, Randy, I was telling you earlier that, I think there's been 6 or 7 pieces of legislation that have said no, to these passports and these mandates, and I would guess that Ron has probably signed on to those as I am.
They just don't make any sense.
Yeah, that's,
I mean, I think of a world where Becker County decides, we could get into a scary world where Becker County says, we're not letting people in unless they're vaccinated. I'm like, really? Why would you do that? So everyone's driving around. I mean,
sure,
it's just,
driving around Becker.
It just makes no sense.
Yep. No. Why you're all of a sudden getting emails and text messages and social media stuff is just because this is on the very front burner, and there's a lot of conspiracy stuff about it, and a lot of bad information being floated around, and lots of craziness.
And I would offer to all the commissioners, forward them to us.
Yeah.
We've got staff, we've got people, because we've got well-researched stuff. I'm happy to respond to those.
Yep.
It's okay to pass the buck on this one and just say, you know what, I'm going to include my legislator or our legislator and just send it our way. We'll help out with that.
Yep, we will.
I'm going to forward them all to you.
Okay, Madam Chair, I think the last one on the list, and certainly if there are other topics, we want to address them, but the last one was the taxing authority of other entities such as watersheds and lake improvement districts. I know that was something that Commissioner Becker had asked specifically to put on.
Yes, I did, and we're working with the lid right now, and there's a lot of money being spent on a certain project, and a lot of the landowners that are maybe not in favor of the project are getting hold of us and asking them, how can they do this to us? And,
Is
so
this the
that's
project
one
in North?
example. Yeah,
Chaminade?
yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure I
Okay.
know.
And another example is, I know Soil and Waters or whatever school, and for us, it's our major, the taxing ability on the land is the major for counties, it's major for school districts. And if you continue to have taxation on the land, you know, what's gonna happen? Because people can only pay so much money without losing their property. So that's kind of where that's stemming from.
So the Chaminade thing, I just sort of, I mean, that's a complicated problem. We're gonna try to find some relief for them in a bonding project, if we can, if everybody can agree to if we can reduce the water levels and where that would go. So that's one thing. The other thing that I would say on the Chaminade thing, and if you have folks that are contacting you, again, send them my way, because there's a lot of people that don't live here that are voting for tax increases or are supporting the lid. Like if you have a metro residence, but you're only up here, and so those voices right now appear to be a little bit stronger than some of the residents. And I'm trying to help out with that. So send them my way. We're working together on this project, and I don't know what the outcome will be, but we're trying to find a solution that's going to be workable.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, if I could just take a minute on behalf of the commissioners, thank you very much, both of you, for
Yeah.
your support on the bonding project for solid waste. That's great to see that that project is moving forward, and we're working through our grant application. So your support on that is greatly appreciated.
Perfect. I have to say you did most of the work. So it was great to support you in your project, and I know we're going to be working on phase 2 here pretty soon.
Yeah, congratulations. That's a good project.
Great project.
Okay. With that, the board will take a recess, and I think there's coffee and goodies out there, so.
And Madam Chair, before you recess, I was just going to say, feel free, I really appreciate this opportunity, by the way, and we probably don't get enough of them. Just let our legislative assistants know, because if they drop it on our calendar, we just go. So, you know, just call down there and say, hey, we have an upcoming board meeting, we'd like to request them, because that's how I work. If it shows up on my calendar, my phone rings, I know I just go. So I'd like more opportunities if possible.
Thank you so
Yeah,
very
you're
much.
welcome.
And to our employees also for coming forward. I think it was a very good discussion this morning. Thank you.
We love coming here. We love the communication. Stay in touch.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
And
Yes.
Yes.
and I said curriculum.
Yeah. Will do. Thanks.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. I will do that. All right, thanks.
Well, correct.
No, my wife sends me a text, says Advent, question mark. I don't know what the hell that means.
But do they only have so much to pick from coming out of the state?
Well, so here's the thing, the state, so we're pushing back on the state, we're pushing back and not saying you have to do anything. Sure. Right now, there's nothing in place for critical services they have.
Yeah.
So, this is.
And John too brought up the sex education part of it too, that's sneaking in those different avenues.
Here's what happens, so like,
Nooner.
Yep.
Okay, we are back from the closed session, and she'll be opening up the meeting, so if you want to get that rolling. Yep.
Oh, when's our next meeting? September what? You ready to go? Okay, we'll be bringing the Board of Commissioners meeting back to order. The time is 12:04 PM. We will go ahead and do the standing reports. Auditor Treasurer?
Today I have to report that there are 4 special school elections that are being certified for November 2nd. Absentee voting will open on the 17th of September. Those school districts are 213 Osakis is for a replacement of a school board member that passed away last December and has not been filled, so it's a vacancy. School District 487 Upsala, that's for operating levy. 743 Sauk Center, again for an operating levy increase. And our only home school that is our election to handle is 2753 Long Prairie Regal, and that also is for operating levy dollars that they're looking for on their ballot. And that's all I have right now to report.
When was the township meeting again?
September 22nd.
September 22nd.
6 p.m. Clarissa.
Ballroom.
Okay, then we'll go into Commissioners' reports.
Madam Chair, I just
Yeah.
wanted to thank the legislators for coming today. It was really appreciative, very informative, I think, for our staff, and they got to hear from them, so just wanted to thank them again.
Yep. I thought it turned out very well today.
I have nothing.
Okay. Gary, no? Okay, coordinators report?
Madam Chair, I have nothing at this time.
Okay, at that, we will recess the board until September 21st at 9 o'clock. The time is 12:06.